She lost her husband, but she never expected healing to arrive at a lonely cowboy's ranch. When the Apache widow finally revealed the truth behind her silent nights, Ethan gave her something she thought was gone forever: peace. What happened next changed both their lives. Like, subscribe, and stay till the end for this emotional Wild West story. The winds across the Arizona frontier carried more than dust. They carried old songs, fading footprints, and memories that never truly left. At the edge of an Apache settlement lived Ayana, a widow who had once laughed easily and spoken with confidence. Since losing her husband during a violent tribal conflict years earlier, silence had become her closest companion. The people around her respected her strength and admired how she continued helping others, but none of them knew how empty her evenings felt. Every sunset reminded her of what she had lost. She had learned to survive, yet surviving was not the same as living. One afternoon, with clay jars balanced carefully at her side, Ayana rode alone toward a narrow stream outside the settlement. The air was warm and still until she noticed a damaged wagon resting beside the trail. A man knelt beside it, sleeves rolled up, repairing the broken wheel with calm concentration. He looked up briefly but said nothing unnecessary. His name was Ethan, a cowboy from a nearby ranch. Without asking who she was or expecting help, he continued his work. Ayana quietly watched before offering water. He thanked her with a simple smile and returned to fixing the wagon. When the work was done, Ethan tested the wheel and prepared to leave. He didn't ask questions about her life or offer sympathy that felt empty. Before riding away, he simply said that no one should have to struggle alone if help was nearby. The words stayed with Ayana longer than she expected. In the days that followed, she found herself thinking about the stranger who treated her like a person instead of someone marked by loss. After some hesitation, she prepared fresh bread and dried meat and traveled to his ranch to thank him properly. Ethan welcomed her without surprise and invited her to sit near the evening fire. The ranch was quiet, surrounded by open land and fading orange skies. They talked about ordinary things at first: weather, horses, and the changing seasons. Slowly, the conversation turned more personal. Ayana stared into the fire for a long moment before speaking softly. She admitted that when she was alone, her hands wandered through old belongings and empty spaces, searching for the life she once had. She wasn't speaking about romance or longing for another man. She was speaking about grief. Ethan listened without interruption. He didn't rush to comfort her or tell her to move on. Instead, he spoke quietly about how loss leaves habits behind, how people reach for voices that no longer answer and remember routines that no longer exist. His words carried understanding rather than advice. Something inside Ayana finally softened. For years, she had stood tall for everyone else, pretending she needed nothing. That night, she allowed herself to rest beside someone who expected nothing from her. For the first time in years, she leaned into another person's arms and felt less alone. Weeks passed quietly across the Arizona plains, and without either of them noticing, a routine began to form. Ayana started visiting Ethan's ranch every few days. Sometimes she helped repair fences, and sometimes she simply sat nearby while he worked. Ethan never asked about the conflict that took her husband or questioned the sadness that occasionally appeared in her eyes. He treated her as she was in the present, not as someone defined by tragedy. They shared simple meals, exchanged stories, and watched long western sunsets fade into cool desert evenings. Slowly, silence between them became comfortable instead of painful. As the days turned into weeks, Ayana noticed small changes in herself. She no longer avoided laughter when it came naturally, and she stopped counting the hours until nightfall. Yet some evenings still brought old memories back with unexpected force. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered across the valley, and a cold wind swept over the land. Rain arrived suddenly and heavily. Instead of returning to her empty home, Ayana guided her horse toward Ethan's ranch. By the time she reached the porch, Her clothes were soaked, and her expression carried a sadness she couldn't hide. Ethan opened the door without surprise, as though part of him had expected her. He handed her a dry blanket and placed another log into the fire. The room filled with warmth while thunder echoed outside. Neither spoke immediately. Ayana sat quietly, watching the flames move while memories drifted through her mind. She remembered evenings from years before, shared meals, familiar voices, and promises interrupted by loss. Finally, she looked toward Ethan and said in a low voice, "I forgot what peace feels like." The words hung in the air, carrying more meaning than she intended to reveal. Ethan remained silent for a moment before answering. He didn't offer speeches or tell her everything would be fine. He simply said, "You don't have to carry everything alone." Those words reached her differently than comfort from others had before. There was no pressure behind them and no expectation. He wasn't trying to replace anyone or rescue her from her past. He was only offering presence. They stayed beside the fire for hours, speaking about ordinary things and sharing moments of quiet. Outside, the storm slowly moved across the valley and disappeared into the distance. When the night grew late, Ayana realized something unexpected. She no longer felt the need to run from memories or fill silence with distractions. For the first time since becoming a widow, she felt something she thought had disappeared forever: hope. Not the kind built from dramatic promises, but the quiet hope that life could still hold meaningful moments. Ethan watched her smile softly at the fire and understood something too. The strongest people often aren't searching for someone to save them. Sometimes they're simply waiting for someone patient enough to stay beside them until the storm passes.